Hi, I'm Rob Adler, and welcome to Understanding Upstate. It's the podcast dedicated to exploring what makes upstate New York such a unique place. Each week, my co-host Jim Search and I dive into a new upstate topic to better understand what's up upstate. And today, we are talking Spiedies.
That's right, baby.
Can you give me just like the elevator pitch for a Spiedie?
Oh my God. Well, I mean, the best way to describe it is if angels came down from heaven and threaded lamb, chicken, or pork onto a skewer, and then you eat it, and then you just levitate. That's the only way I can describe it.
That's the only way I would.
Right. That's right.
Accurate. It's accurate.
So that is the informal Jim Search description of a Spiedie. We should get into the roots, right? The foundation of all things Spiedie related.
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves here.
Okay.
We got to do a quick check-in.
Oh shit. Yeah.
We got to also let people know that we are going to have the premier Spiedie journalist speaking with us a little bit later in this episode. So we have our first Understanding Upstate interview in this episode.
Right.
To talk about the magnificent regional sandwich that is the Binghamton Spiedie. But before we get to all that, how you been?
Oh, yeah. You know what? I came in, you know what it was? And I apologize, Rob. All this Spiedie talk, I said, you know what? Let me get into the research and my whole life, right? So, again, apologies. I'm doing all right. Life is all right. I've been real busy. Just in terms of like writing, I've got a couple writing projects that I'm trying to get off. I had a really great conversation, with, a venue in upstate New York, which I talked to a little bit off mic. But when the time is right, upstaters, you will find out about what we got cooking up there, and I'm really excited about it, but I can't talk about it quite yet.
Worth the wait. That's what I can say. Yeah,
definitely. It's definitely worth the wait. You know what I mean? So yeah, be on the lookout for that. And, just running around, man, trying to stay funny and doing shows and shit. Had a good show out in Bushwick. That was really fun. So life is good. But enough about my humdrum existence.
I would never say that.
Well, I will. I will gladly say that, I'm a speck of dust in the universe, if you think about it. But if we're talking about you, sir, you've been up to a lot as of late. And I also want to say congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
For the nuptials. And you celebrated that. Where did you go? What happened?
My wife Athena and I went to Curacao. We swam every day. We swam with fish, and then we went and ate fish every single day. Some of the best swimming and fish eating I've ever experienced in my life. Clear water. No one wants to hear me talk about how clear the water was, but Jim, the water was so clear. I can't even. But what I do want to talk about is hyper-regional beer to Curacao, and I think some of the islands near it, the ABC Islands, if you will. It's called Amstel Bright.
Amstel Bright?
Yeah. Have you ever heard of such a thing?
I've heard Amstel Light. I definitely heard of that.
This is Amstel Bright, and it's magnificent. It's like a Amstel mashed with a Corona. A little bit more, I would say I love Corona, a little bit more flavorful than a Corona.
Okay.
If you are on the beach, it's the most refreshing and crushable beer I've ever had. I miss it as much as the fish. It was so good. So good. And yeah, I can't get it. The only way to get it is to go back.
Well, now you got an excuse, man. You know what I mean?
I sure do. If it's
one thing that really makes a beach experience next level, it is crushing beers.
Mm-hmm. But Jim, we're not here to talk about regional beers. We're here to talk about a regional sandwich.
Oh.
Should we get into the Spiedie?
Yeah, because that is a regional delicacy native to my home plane of existence, Binghamton, New York, right? That is where it all started. And then once it started there, went out into the southern tier and became more widely accepted, but very local to my Binghamton roots.
Well, let's get into it.
Yes. Now, what is the definition of a spiedie? Okay, here's the official one, right? The spiedie is a food consisting of marinated meat that is often threaded onto skewers before being grilled and served on a long bread or sliced Italian bread. Okay, that is one way to serve it. You could also throw it on a salad. Not a stranger to that. I did read some people threw them into a stir fry. I don't know if that's my speed. However, again, it's your spiedie, your life. Do with it what you will. Okay. Now, as I was saying before, spiedies are local to Binghamton and then celebrated and popularized throughout the southern tier. What type of meat goes into a spiedie? I'll tell you. You could have chicken, pork, lamb, veal, venison, or beef. Okay.
All the main food groups. There you go.
And if you are in the 607, you are correct, sir. 1000%. Now, Rob, this may sound wild to you, but in my time on this earth, I have seen people even try and put together like a tofu spiedie, like a vegan spiedie. Mm-hmm. And I'm here to tell you, no. Look, you know what? I have dabbled in some vegan stuff in my life. I've had tofu, and obviously tofu just takes on the flavor of whatever the food is.
Sure.
But there's something in my 607 DNA that says that motherfucker better be some kind of meat, man. You can't. What the fuck are we doing out here? Inappropriate behavior.
I got a quick question.
Sure.
I have the correct definition of a spiedie. I always thought it was all the parts together in a sandwich form. But from what it sounds like, a spiedie is just the skewered meat. And then the delivery system can vary. Is that
correct? Yes.
Got it.
Because you could have, right? Because you could, as to your point, you could have a spiedie sub. You could have a spiedie salad, right? So the spiedie, the cured chunk of meat that was on a spit and grilled, that is what we're here to talk about today, right?
Got it.
As I was saying before, right, you could have it on Italian bread. Some people like to even drizzle the marinade on top of it.
Yep.
Which I guess that's like turbo fading. You know what I mean? It's like taking some Robitussin and then just getting real faded. But, again, to each their own. So how can one eat it? Here's what you could do. A couple different ways to get there. You could eat it straight off the skewer. Done it before. I'm here to tell you that. As I said, you could have it on a salad. Also done that. And to your point, Rob, you could throw it into a sub, right?
What's your favorite way to eat a spiedie?
Ooh, great question. Depends on how many beers I've had. But I will say I'm more of a spiedie sub guy. I like a spiedie, I like to throw like the regular fixings of what a sub would have. So like lettuce, tomato, onions. I like cheese on mine. I like to throw a little cheese in there.
Is there different cheeses that are acceptable or not acceptable?
I'm sure there's probably some spiedie purist out there that is going to be like, you put cheese on a spiedie, you fucking heathen. Right? I'm sure I'll probably catch some heat for that, but I don't really care. It's my fucking spiedie. Buy me one, you can put what you want on it. But until then, since I'm spending my money, I'll put whatever the fuck I want. So I like to that point, I feel like, there isn't any specific kind. I personally but this is across any sub. I like provolone cheese. I'm a big provolone guy. I could also see like a mozzarella cheese is kind of good too. And that, but again, that's just me. Now, here's the thing. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit later about what goes into a spiedie marinade, because obviously you have different restaurants that make their own and they have their own types of recipes or whatever. But like the foundation of it is like you have, olive oil, vinegar, and then you have a variety of spices and then mint, right? So that is what, obviously, give or take whatever it is you want to do.
Mint. Okay. That's a twist. I did not. I didn't expect mint to come up on that list.
You know what? Now that I like think about it and having ate as many as I have, it's like, oh yeah, I feel like there's been some mint involved in that.
A little hint of mint. Yeah.
Or like, and also like, like oregano gets in there too, salt, pepper, all the good stuff.
Yep.
Now, this is as per Wikipedia, okay? Spiedies have been celebrated at the Spiedie Fest and Balloon Rally in Binghamton every August since 1983, okay? Now, this is an annual event that includes a spiedie cook-off in search of the best spiedie recipes. This is their words, not mine. I've been to a Spiedie Fest before in my life.
How many Spiedie Fests have you been to?
I mean, I would say probably 6, if I had to guess.
Okay.
As a kid and then as a 20-something going back to Binghamton. I mean, it's a fucking blast, man. You got Spiedies. You got balloons up in the air. I don't know what else.
When we say balloons, we're not talking like birthday balloons. We're talking hot air balloons, right?
Oh, yeah. You're talking hot air balloons. You're talking about you get the little basket. You know what I mean? If you want to and you want to live that type of lifestyle.
It's not just like balloon professionals. You can go on a balloon ride.
I haven't personally, but like I'm sure that has happened at some point. Okay, I can't necessarily speak to it, but I know that it wouldn't be out of the realm of impossibility for somebody to be in a fucking balloon.
Please tell me that Serling Fest and Spiedie Fest like overlap, because we got to get to both of these. Events this year.
I think as the understanding Upstate co-host here, it is our duty to attend these events and maybe report on them on the scene, do a little field piece up there. I mean, this wouldn't be a crazy thing to think about, right?
If anyone listening doesn't know what Serling Fest is, you should go listen to our past episode on Rod Serling, and you will understand what Serling Fest is.
You'll know what it is.
Ooh, can I bring up one thing about Spiedie Fest? In my Spiedie research, I cast, again, a pretty wide net. I'm going into old news articles, going into magazines. I've checked out books from the library, virtual library, but still, like, I did some work.
Sure.
And I came across this writer / journalist named Paul Lukas, who went to, is it university?
Binghamton University.
Binghamton University.
So there's 2 ways. It's either SUNY Binghamton, right? Or Binghamton University.
Let's pretend I said it one of those ways. And that's where he went.
Right.
And he, I believe, lives in Brooklyn now. But he wrote about the Spiedie back in the 90s, when most writing about Spiedies was like promoting Spiedie Fest or things like that. So as far as I can tell, he's one of the first people to write about the Spiedie. Now, in one of the things he wrote, this was in a zine that he wrote called Beer Frame, and it focused on like individual products or just very hyper specific advertising or commercial products. And he focused on the Spiedie, and in particular, I'm sure we'll get to it, Rob Salamita's Spiedie marinade, which is a marinade that's sold.
Right.
Rob Salamita is the one of the co-founders of Spiedie Fest, right?
Right.
And in Paul Lukas's zine, made the claim that Rob had hired a PR firm to help promote Spiedies, which we can all agree, great. Let's spread the message. However,
spread the gospel, right?
Spread the good word of a good sandwich,
right,
and a good meat. I keep saying sandwich. It's much more than that.
It is.
But the other claim is that the winner of the inaugural Spiedie Fest was in fact Rob Salamita, which
Oof.
I don't know, man. That's
I believe that is what we call a conflict of interest.
mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
But yeah, a real conflict of interest. And we'll talk with Paul later. But again, they're starting to see that there might be a little controversy around the Spiedie.
Yeah. I mean, even just on like a local granular level, right? Because it's like, you know, you have like Team Lupo's, they have their brand, you have Salamita's, right? Mm-hmm. So like you have different, you know, people like their different kinds, and I'm sure there's been arguments over which one's better.
Sure. And there's some like, you know, some places aren't around anymore too, right?
Right.
So I'm sure there's been a shuffling of the Spiedie pecking order.
And hey, I mean, I'm sure there's some, you know, Southern Tier resident who has their own Spiedie marinade that they fuck with, right? That's how they get down, right? But the big players, right, are Lupo's and Salamita's.
Got it.
As far as I know, correct me out there if I'm wrong.
Neither of them have a storefront at this point, right?
Lupo's does. I
read that Lupo's closed.
So there is the Lupo's on, oh God, what is it? It's like on State Street, I think. Mm-hmm. That one closed, but there is one that's open on Front Street. So like, you can still go pick up a Spiedie, you can pick up a sub, you can still go into the restaurant or whatever.
And they both sell marinades.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I think we actually stopped there before, because when we went up to Binghamton to do the documentary, we stopped because I was like, hey, I want to stop and grab some marinade before we get back on the road. Mm-hmm. So we stopped at the Lupo's up there.
Indeed, we did.
All is not lost. You know, the institutions still thrive. We'll talk about the etymology, okay? Like, where did the term Spiedie come from? And I will tell you. The term Spiedie is derived from the Italian word speedo, which means spit. The regional dish, called the spiedini or the spiducci, is from Abruzzo, Italy. Most closely resembling a Spiedie, uses cubes or balls of goat meat, lamb, chicken, or beef on a skewer. So that is like the foundation of where the Spiedie comes from and the term. Okay. Now, the original idea of the Spiedie was brought over to upstate New York, Binghamton area, by Italian immigrants in the early 20s. Okay. Binghamton has a pretty huge, and I wouldn't even say just Binghamton, the Southern Tier has a very large Italian immigrant population at the time. And still to this day, there are many Italian families and institutions that are there. So this totally makes sense that this is of Italian birth, if you will. Now, I will say that there's been other iterations of what would be considered a Spiedie, because you have like a kebab, and then there's also like some Middle Eastern variations of it. Binghamton and Southern Tier would attribute the Spiedie to, like I said, the spiedini or the spiducci, if you will. Now, traditionally, you know, the early Broome County Spiedie was only made from spring lamb, but then most restaurants prepared the Spiedie using chicken or pork.
Is there one that's more commonly, like if someone just says, I'll have a Spiedie, do they assume it's one or the other? Or like what's the default, I guess?
Yeah, the default, I think, is chicken.
Okay.
Like if you were just like, let me get a Spiedie sub, you know, and like if you didn't specify, you'd probably get a chicken. I mean, I think you might find, obviously, some people who might say, like, do you want chicken or pork? Right? Because, like, those price points are going to be a little different. But, like, if I said, like, hey, you know, come on over, we're having Spiedies, it's probably going to be chicken.
Got it. Yep.
But, like, yeah, if you go to a restaurant, they're going to have different versions, probably cost different prices. Now, here's something fun. The chicken category was added to the Spiedie Fest cook-off in 87.
Interesting.
And that is when it became a popular meat choice.
Interesting.
So, yeah, good to know. Salient information. I mean, again, I think Paul might be able to better speak to things Spiedie related, but this is what your good friend here has come up with. Now, there are two, from my research, there are two origin stories of the iconic food known as Spiedie, okay? Now, I'm going to fuck up some of the pronunciations of these names, but everybody here is dead, so I'm not worried about it, and hopefully their livelihood doesn't come after me for it.
We've already done our episode on ghosts. We don't have to worry about ghosts. It's fine.
That's right.
It's fine.
That's right. All right, so here's version 1, all right? Camillo Accavelli created the Spiedie in Enwell, New York, and was serving them in 1938 at his Parkview restaurant on Oak Hill Ave in Endicott. His brother, Augustino, or Augie, popularized Spiedies when he introduced them in his Endicott restaurant Augie's in 1939. Icavelli's marinade, which he called Zuzu, originally...
Love it.
Yeah, fun names. Zuzu originally was made simply from wine vinegar, water, lemon juice, garlic, and mint. Italian spices, olive oil, and minced onions were later added as regional tastes and the choice of meat began to vary, which makes sense. Augie's son Guido, his name not mine, continued in the Spiedie business into the 90s, owning as many as 26 restaurants at the peak of his career.
Whoa.
So that is a Spiedie baron, right? a god of the skewer. All right. Now, here's version 2. Okay. Peter Sharak, gonna fuck that up some more, is alleged to have invented Spiedies and began serving them in 1947 at his Sharky's Bar and Grill in Binghamton. Rest in peace to Sharky's. Sharky's promotes itself as the birthplace of the sandwich in television commercials across the Binghamton area. So, these are the two stories that people have subscribed to. I fuck with version 2.
Okay.
Personally, as a Binghamtonian.
Okay. Let's say Sharky's closed in the last few years, or was it more recent than that?
Within the last few years, they closed. I want to say more sooner than later. They closed, and yeah, it was a institution. It was on Clinton Street, so on what I guess would be considered like the West Side First Ward area of the old Hamptons. Rest in peace to the...
Never got to go.
Oh, man.
Never got to go.
Listen, you know what? If there was a time machine and I could do one thing, Rob. Hop in, sir. We're going back to 1995 and a far more simpler time. All right. So, growth and popularity, okay? Now, I can tell you as a kid growing up, it's what you ate. It's what you did. It was fucking amazing. So... they are a popular food. In 1975, Rob Salamita becomes the first person to bottle the sauce and sell it. Okay. He began by cooking Spiedies outside a local tavern at 16 years old. After writing letters for over a year, he was allowed to have his own booth at the New York State Fair in Syracuse, New York.
I read he was like bottling marinade in his parents' basement on the pool table.
Yeah.
It was real grassroots operation.
It's a, real getting it out of the mud, as they say, right? Mm-hmm. Which, like, yo, man, this is some real top shelf shit. I get why he was bottling it up and slinging it. So, for 12 years, he built his reputation at the fair. And after a tornado nearly struck his stand in 75...
Whoa!
He decided it would be more lucrative and safer to bottle the Spiedie marinade. Now, one of the most popular shops to purchase Spiedies in the Southern Tier, as popularity for the marinated sandwiches grew, was Lupo's. That's the spot. So Lupo's Marinade and Spiedies are available locally in the single remaining Binghamton store, but products can also be purchased online.
Yes, they can.
And if you can buy one, buy another one. What are you doing? You know?
Get multiple marinades going. You can't have too many bottles of it.
Right. I don't know. I've never heard of anybody crossfading and taking a Lupo's and taking a Lupo's and Salamitas to the Dome. But you know what? Everybody lives their lives differently.
I think our first Understanding Upstate meetup is just going to be a Spiedie fest, and we'll have all the varieties of marinade available. We'll get the Wegmans one in there too, just for just why
sure.
not?
Yeah. For shits and giggles. Now, again, this is Paul's going to clear this up, but in 1983, this is according to our good friends at Wikipedia, a few families got together and held a Spiedie Fest, which was a tremendous hit. Coupled with a balloon rally, it quickly grew to an annual festival attracting more than 100,000 attendees.
Saw an interview with Rob Salamita, I think celebrating one of the recent anniversaries for the festival. And I was wondering, like, how did ballooning get included into this activity? And it was just some balloonists approach like, hey, what if we had balloons? They're like, yeah, why not? Let's do it.
You know what? Hadn't thought about it, but hell yeah.
Yeah.
Let's get it shaken, right?
The perfect marriage.
Yeah. I mean, it's a marriage in the sky. It is also one of the top balloon rallies in the country.
Wow.
Who knew? I didn't know that, but here we are all learning together. As of late, the most recent Spiedie news that I have is in 2013, our dear President Barack Obama visited Binghamton University to promote his affordable college plan and joked that he was going to get a Spiedie while in Binghamton.
Joked or was making a serious addition to his agenda?
Here's what I will say, though, as someone who dabbles in the world of comedy.
Sure.
Barack Obama's pretty funny dude, man. He's quick.
Yeah.
Like he's a pretty quick-witted guy. So the writing that he was joking about getting a Spiedie, I could see him doing that. I could also see one of the speechwriters maybe doing a little research of the area, and then weaving that in.
They knew enough to not call it a Spiedie, right? Like it's If you're listening to this and you haven't seen how it's written out, it is not necessarily spelled in a way that you would think would elicit the pronunciation Spiedie.
Yeah.
So they did some research.
Smart. Because I feel like, and I will speak on behalf of my 607 brethren, that if one were to refer to it as a Spiedie, we know what this is. Don't like it would be one thing. All right. So here's what I'm only going to speak for me. It's one thing if like you've never like passing through town, whatever, you stop in at Lupo's and you're like, hey man, I'm really hungry. I want to get a Spiedie. Might be a little stifled chuckle, but it's like,
sure,
all right, man, it's actually called a Spiedie, right?
And I'm about to change your life.
Right. I'm about to take you to another level. You know what I mean? But if you're Barack Obama and you're standing in front of the Binghamton University Bearcats and you're telling them, hey, I've got this affordable college plan that's going to change your life and you're going to come out debt free and you're going to be great. Also, I'm going to go grab a Spiedie while I'm in town. They're going to be like, fuck you. You disingenuous motherfucker, right? You can't half step when it comes to that if you're trying to like pander to an audience. You know what I mean?
No, for sure.
Mm-mm.
For sure.
Now, I lied. Rob, I lied to you. Okay.
Whoa.
So that is not the most recent Spiedie news that we have. Okay. because I want to say around like 2015, me and a couple of people I know who live down here in Brooklyn, they're from Binghamton.
Mm-hmm.
We all went to a restaurant called Upstate. Okay, that was the name of the restaurant. And they were doing like upstate cuisine, right? So Spiedies, garbage plates, buffalo wings,
Salt potatoes,
all that was on deck. And, it was one of those type of like regional fair sort of places, which is a pretty good idea actually, because those are really great foods and they're pretty unique and they're all upstate.
Yeah.
So on board for it. Now, we all went in there as Binghamtonians and we were like secret shoppers, right? Because like, you know what I mean? Like we've been part of this life. We've been down for a minute. So we know what goes into a Spiedie. So I asked the waitress, I ordered the Spiedie and I asked the waitress, I go, so, what kind of marinade do you guys use for your Spiedies? And she said, oh, we just use oil and vinegar. Fuck you. Okay. Fuck all the way off into the Hudson River. You fuck. No way. Inappropriate. Flag on the play. Oil and vinegar? Oil and vinegar?
Mm-mm.
I will not. Boy, that is not how that fucking goes. She needs to say Lupos or Salamitas. That's it. Maybe Wegmans if we maybe let that slide or whatever. In a pinch. Right. But like you gotta, I don't know what type of fucking half step bullshit this is. Oil and vinegar? That is not a fucking Spiedie.
No.
Maybe a kebab. Definitely not a Spiedie. To the shock of no one, this place is not open anymore. Okay? Because you've cursed the gods.
They didn't understand. They clearly did not understand.
Yeah, that's a different podcast they listened to. Where they thought they could have that's a Spiedie, actually, now that I think about it.
Yep.
If you have oil and vinegar in this food that you're making, that's a Spiedie. You're not hitting with no Spiedies. Get the fuck out of here. I'm not here for that shit.
Nope, I don't want it.
No.
I don't want it.
I don't want it. I don't need it. Tell you what, I don't even need it. So that is the most recent Spiedie news that I have here for us today for Understanding Upstate.
Well, let me bring it to the winter of 2022.
Okay. Talk to me.
Where I had the delight of experiencing my first Spiedie.
That's right.
I think we were out in Binghamton March-ish
right.
of 2023. So even more recent.
Yes, this is more Spiedie news. Yes.
We were out in Binghamton shooting a documentary called Understanding Upstate.
That's right, baby.
And I had the pleasure of experiencing my first Spiedie, which you had talked up in the weeks leading up before.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta say, it is one of the most delightful things I have ever eaten. I still only had one Spiedie, but I wake up each morning thinking about the next. It's such...
That's right.
I'm talking specifically about the sandwich. I love sandwiches. It is one of my favorite sandwiches I've ever had, and I'm so excited to have more. They're fantastic. If you're driving through Binghamton, you have to get one. If you're driving through anywhere on the East Coast, reroute yourself through Binghamton and get a Spiedie immediately.
If you're going from, say, Vermont to Buffalo, shoot on down to Binghamton, baby, and then head back up to Buffalo. That's the exact way of going about it.
Lunch in Binghamton.
Yeah, no other way to live. Now, I'll say this, though, is like Spiedies are one of those types of foods where it's just like you can make them at home, but they don't hit like they do at a restaurant. You can make like a stir fry at home, but it's not going to compare to like a golden chopstick stir fry that you get at a Chinese restaurant. You know, it's
sure.
So like, hence that, like, look, I've made Spiedies at my house it'll get me over, but it's not going to be like if I went to Lupo's. Like, that's going to be top shelf. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You're getting close to the finish line, but you might as well just make that drive up to the Hamptons to pick that up.
Absolutely.
So that's what I have.
I got a little bit more.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let's go.
I got a little bit more research, and then that'll transition us into our conversation with, again, the premier Spiedie journalist. That's my words, not necessarily Paul's, but yeah. So I did a little research just on how Spiedie recognition nationally has evolved, where really up until the start of the Spiedie Fest, it doesn't seem like most people outside of Binghamton or upstate New York were, news of the Spiedie hadn't spread much beyond that region, right?
Right.
And certainly the Spiedie Fest helped. But what I found was the internet. Internet really helped spread the Spiedie. And there were 2 books that mentioned the Spiedie. One in 97. Again, this is a book that Paul Lukas wrote, Inconspicuous Consumption, which again was a compilation of some of his zines that he had put out there. But it features a little couple pages on Salamina's marinade. And then later on in 2005, there's a book called Road Food, one word, and it was a book by a couple, Jane and Michael Stern, and they're just describing basically different regional foods like you could have on a road trip.
Sure.
I also discovered that there are multiple editions of this book, so that I think it was from my research, it seems like the Spiedie was first included in the 2005 edition.
Okay.
The couple then later on divorced, but they continued doing their own road food books. So it's go check it out. It seems like a real interesting regional food rabbit hole to go down. Just to compare what their competing books are like. I was looking for successive editions of the book, and then I noticed there were later ones that just had Jane or Michael on them. I was like, wait a minute, what happened? They don't have necessarily love for each other, but they still have love for regional food, which is, I think at the end of the day, it's what we're all looking for.
We want a good sandwich and someone to love us. But what I would say is I wouldn't be shocked if their resentment for each other seeped into the book. Because right. Michael's yeah, this roadside diner in Ithaca is great. Unlike my ex-wife, Jane, she's right. Not great.
Well, maybe we can get both of them to Spiedie Fest 2024 and get them to reconcile over.
You think we'll bring them back together?
Maybe. Yeah. We'll see. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. See if we can rekindle the relationship that Michael and Jane once had together.
Well, to kind of cue up our conversation here that we're going to have with Paul, I want to read an excerpt from his book.
Okay.
On Spiedies. It's a little lengthy, but Jim, I think you're going to appreciate it.
All right.
It's in a Star Trek reference too. It's perfect for me.
I was going to say, that's right up your alley, man.
All right, here it is. In the 1978 version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, there's a scene where Leonard Nimoy, still typecast as an alien, even without the ears, explains how he and his fellow pod people drift through space until they find suitable planets to infiltrate. We adapt and we survive, he says. The function of life is survival. Well, that's all very nice, but it's bullshit. The function of life is to eat Spiedies, period.
Yeah.
I read that and I knew I wanted to talk to this guy. And again, we're going to talk to him just about his relationship with Spiedies. And he went to college at SUNY Binghamton. And has written about them numerous times and numerous places over the years. Again, books, articles, newspapers, and whatnot, his own publications. And he has some, I'm going to say, some bona fides, if you will. He, at one point, had his name in Sharkies.
Love it.
According to Jim, the originator of the Spiedie.
That's right, baby.
And again, yeah, I'm going to say it. I think we can claim him as a Spiedie expert and lover for sure.
Yeah. It takes some effort to get published, man. You got to get somebody else to believe in you to put that shit on to ink. So, yeah, I'm going to defer to that.
I'm really interested to go deep on Spiedies with Paul. Let's get into it.
Love it.
All right, we have writer and journalist Paul Lukas here with us, who has written about the Spiedie in various publications going as far back as the early 90s. And best we can tell, he is one of the first people to write about the Spiedie outside of general recipes or promotions for things like the Spiedie Fest. Thank you so much for talking with us today, Paul, about our favorite marinated meat, the Spiedie.
I am always happy to talk Spiedies with anybody. So to help spread the Spiedie gospel, as it were.
The good word of a good meat. So let's just jump right into the questions. Can you give us a quick breakdown of your history with the Spiedie?
Sure. So I attended SUNY Binghamton University. My freshman year was 1982. But before that, I had a much older sister-in-law. And she, her first year at SUNY Binghamton was 1970. And so she was there in the early 70s. And when I got into SUNY Binghamton, she was telling me like, oh, you've got to know about this thing they have in Binghamton, the Spiedie. And there's this bar you should go to, Sharky's. And again, this was 1982. She had been there in 1970. Sharky's was already Binghamton's premier Spiedie bar and kind of an old neighborhood hangout in Binghamton. At that point. So by the time I arrived in 82, I went right there and I wanted to check out Spiedies. And, the interesting thing about it is that this was the same period, the early 80s, that buffalo wings were kind of spreading beyond Buffalo.
Right.
Because I grew up on Long Island. Okay. And so that like sort of some context. And was sometimes in New York City, when I was growing up. And so growing up in like the 70s and early 80s on Long Island and occasionally in the city, by the time I was in high school, you would occasionally see buffalo wings. And it was kind of, this thing that was, it's like a hot thing in Buffalo. And so when I learned about Spiedies, it seemed like, oh, is this like the latest upstate New York niche food or regional food or whatever. And it seemed like it might sort of ride the same path as buffalo wings, which were clearly becoming a thing, and might, go nationwide or become a phenomenon or something like that. And that never really happened. And there's a part of me, I have to say, that's a little happy about that. Even though I would love to see Spiedies go nation and for everybody to know what I'm talking about when I say the word Spiedies. And there is something really nice about regionalism and regional culture and regional foods and things that are part and parcel of a particular place. And it's nice that Binghamton has that, and the Southern tier, Spiedies have certainly expanded beyond Binghamton proper, but there's still pretty much a Binghamton region food. And there is something nice about that in our world where, the internet connects everybody, cable TV connects everybody, that everybody anyone can read the same thing everyone else is reading or watch the same TV, but that we still have certain aspects of local and regional culture that are distinct to themselves.
Like we were talking off mic a little bit. I'm looking forward to my next Spiedie because I can't just walk out my door and get it. Like I'm in Brooklyn. I can get most things right out my door, but I can't get a Spiedie, and I really love.
You could make your own. You could make your own.
It's true, and I'm one of the few people that has a grill in their backyard, and I'm going to be ordering some salamitas and hopefully some Lupo's marinades to try my hand at.
Well, I'll be right over.
All right, yeah, I'll let you know. Jim and I will.
The one thing when like you say, you can't just walk out your door in Binghamton. When I was there, at least, the supermarkets all sold pre-marinated Spiedie meat. Like you could buy bottles of the marinade, of course, various brands of marinade, but you could also buy the meat already cubed and soaked in a plastic container in the meat section of every supermarket. And at that time, the default meat for Spiedies was pork.
Mhm.
And I remember being told by some of the old timers, like, back in the day, it was always lamb. And then pork kind of supplanted the lamb because it was cheaper. And sometimes you'd see beef. And when I was up in Binghamton in college in the 80s, chicken was just starting to sort of be a thing as like an alternative thing because it was maybe less expensive and was also viewed as healthier.
Right.
And now I think chicken is, if not the default, it's certainly gained at least, I think, parity with pork.
Jim and I, and in our research, I think Jim found out that chicken was first included in Spiedie Fest in the competition in like 87. And that really started to mark its kind of rise in popularity.
Yeah, I still prefer pork myself. Like
this was one of our main questions, kind of what is your preferred Spiedie meat?
I like the red meat. So I think I would choose pork first, lamb second, but that's sort of a splurge, because lamb's more expensive. And beef is good too, but I would choose all of them personally over chicken.
Do you have a preferred Spiedie delivery system? We talked about Spiedie subs, Spiedie salads, just straight off the skewer.
Straight off the skewer with the piece of super squishy Italian bread. You have to use the bread as like a mitt, in your hand. And grab the cubes of meat and then pull the skewer out. And you quickly learn, you can always spot a Spiedie rookie because usually there's more like the cubes on the meat are longer, like they occupy more space than the width or the length of the slice of bread. So if you don't know what you're doing, one of the cubes is going to end up on the floor when you pull the skewer out. That's
sacrilege as far as I'm concerned.
I feel it's sort of like, it's a learning experience. Sure. Everybody figures out that you actually sort of pull so that as you pull the skewer out, the cubes sort of meet and compress, like so that all the space between them is eliminated. And then you grip with the slice of bread hard. And now you've sort of compressed them into a slightly shorter, expansive space. And yeah, I remember like going to Sharky's and Lupo's and places like that. And they had, I think, again, in the 80s, I think the idea of a Spiedie sub was pretty new at that time. And I thought, I can get a sub anywhere. Like, I liked the idea that this food had its own protocol and its own ritual of how to eat it, instead of just, you eat it the same way you eat, a meatball sub or a salad or whatever. I like that it had its own specific thing. And so I guess I'm a purist in that regard. Also, if you want to eat a lot of Spiedies, and I do, I want to be filling up on like a sub roll. The simple, super squishy piece of Italian bread is, it's bread, but it's not as much bread as a sub roll. So that leaves more stomach capacity for the next piece.
It's a well-designed sandwich for sure. So what inspired you to start writing about Spiedies?
Well, when I left Binghamton, when I graduated and I moved to Brooklyn, where I still live today, I didn't miss much about Binghamton, but I did miss Spiedies. And I think I mail ordered a few bottles of Salamita's sauce and found a recipe where I could make my own. And it just seemed like something that, like, I can take this with me. I can replicate this here and make this part of my culinary life or whatever, that I can do this myself. And then in the early 90s, I started a zine, which eventually sort of gave me a new career as a writer and as a journalist. And I was just writing about interesting products or things that mattered to me. Things I was passionate about, enthusiastic about, obsessive about. And Spiedies were one of them. So they were just in that first issue. And then later in the 90s, like in late 90s, I was lucky enough for a few years, I was a travel writer. And everyone says, "Oh, that must be the best gig." And yeah, it is actually. It's a really good gig. And so I was doing travel writing about America. And I did an article about regional food scenes. And so that was like, the Chicago hot dog and the frozen custard in Milwaukee and things like that.
I'm very familiar with both.
And I thought, I should put Spiedies in this article. And so I did. And so that was one of the things, saying like a hyper local, hyper regional food that you've probably never heard of. Because at that time, a lot of people, at least, even if they hadn't had a Chicago hot dog, they had heard about Chicago hot dogs. But most people hadn't heard about Spiedies. And so that was kind of fun to be able, in a national magazine, I was doing it for Money magazine, to be able to write about something like Spiedies and to highlight Sharky's, which was still my favorite place and which I still went back to, because I would go back to Binghamton once or twice a year for like a minor league baseball game or something like that. It was nice to showcase Sharky's and give them a little attention.
In our correspondence, you mentioned that you had your name in Sharky's. Rest in peace to Sharky's, of course. How did you end up with your name in such a hallowed institution?
I should make it clear, it's not like my name was in big letters on the wall or something like that. But first, they had the article itself was framed and on the wall, and so that was kind of cool. But then I think they took that down. But then Peter Sharrock, who was the owner of Sharky's, the local state assemblyman for Binghamton, who was their like state representative, he, as state representatives often do for local businessmen, he introduced a resolution in the New York State Assembly honoring this pillar of our community, Peter Sharrock. And like so many such resolutions, it had a lot of whereases. Like, whereas Peter Sharrock is a pillar of his community, whereas Peter Sharrock, has run a successful business at the corner of Glenwood and blah, blah, blah for 50 years, whereas his family has gone on to blah, blah, blah. And then it said, whereas his Spiedies are recognized as the world's best. And then it said travel writer Paul Lukas cited them as such.
Wow.
In Money magazine. And then that resolution with like a gold seal and the governor's signature and all this stuff, that was on the wall at Sharky's. And because my name was included in one of the whereases.
Sure.
And so I got a big kick out of that.
No, yeah. Who wouldn't? That's legitimate.
That felt like, like, all right, I've achieved some sort of Spiedie status or something like that. But it also felt good. I mean, I was happy for Sharky's and for Peter Sharrock. And I gotta say, the loss of Sharky's during the pandemic or in the pandemic's wake is just terrible. It was a stuck place. And I don't mean just for Spiedies. It was a great bar. It was a great meeting place. It was a real old-fashioned tavern that had a lot of character and a lot of characters.
Sure. I'm sure.
And it's, I spent a lot of special moments in my life there. And that's for me, like somebody who only lived in Binghamton for those few years when I was in college, but I can't even imagine what it means for the neighborhood and the community with the loss of a place like that. It's really sad.
Yeah, no, it's kind of a trend, not just in upstate New York, but New York City here too has lost a lot of institutions, kind of like you said, in the fallout of the COVID pandemic.
Yeah.
So hopefully some of the remaining Spiedie institutions can endure.
In college, I knew a guy who had a part-time job at Sharky's. Like, he was a fellow student, and he swore to me that they marinated the Spiedies in the basement at Sharky's in like trash cans, in like big galvanized metal trash cans with like a plastic bag fit in them, and just had like, imagine like all those cubes of meat marinating in there for days. And I think that's a key question of Spiedie culture is how long do you marinate?
Right.
Because I'm usually like, ideally like at least overnight and preferably like 2 days into the third day, something like that. Some people do like 6 hours and like, that's not a Spiedie.
That's not enough. Yeah. Definitely not. Jim and I were wondering, have you ever attended a Spiedie Fest?
I did go to Spiedie Fest once, I think around 1990, something like that. That was fine, but it didn't have the ambiance of Sharky.
Right.
Yeah, it was fun, and they do that balloon rally, I think, right? Like they have like hot air balloon. Yeah, so that was fun, and I like that it's again a local thing that helps, put Binghamton on the map or something like that. But it's not like I make a point to go every year or like that. It was fun.
So in our research, we came up with someone that had quoted the first issue of your zine, Beer Frame. So I just want to read this quote back to you and see if you remember anything from this. It references the origins of the Spiedie Fest. It's a little bit of a lengthy quote, but I'll try and read it.
And again, you're not quoting something I wrote. You're quoting something someone else wrote about what I wrote.
Yes, this is from the. We couldn't find the original source material, being Beer Frame issue number 1, but this book, Dissidents in a New Millennium, was referencing. And this is from a particular chapter on zines, again, talking about Beer Frame 1. Here's the quote. Lukas went on to tell his readers that a particular shish kebab marinade called Spiedies tastes no different from dozens of other sauces. But this particular one became an overnight sensation in Binghamton, New York, after a phalanx of well-paid PR flacks came up with the idea of creating a Spiedie Fest to promote the product that climaxed. Lukas wrote, with the crowning of the acknowledged king of the Spiedie, the very restaurant that had hired the PR team to begin with, end quote. One of the originators of the Spiedie Fest was Rob Salamita. So that's, I believe, who this author is referencing. Paul, do you remember anything about this?
I do not. I don't remember anything about a PR firm or writing about anything about a PR firm. I think what I wrote was that Salamita's got like legal permission, or I don't know if they filed a court case or if they filed a trademark application or something, but the official name of the product is Salamita's original State Fair Spiedie sauce, I believe. And I think he got legal permission to use the term State Fair.
Right.
And if I'm remembering correctly, maybe even his spelling of the word Spiedie, because at that time, I think there were many competing spellings of Spiedie. Now everyone seems to agree that it's S-P-I-E-D-I-E. But I believe there may have been some less standardization at that time. Right. And Salamita's, I think, as I recall, one of the first mass market sauces, Spiedie sauces, that helped standardize that spelling. I also don't think I wrote anything about how it tastes no different than any.
Right.
I don't know. Spiedie sauces, I mean, it is very much like Italian dressing. In a way, it has oil, it has vinegar, it has garlic, but I feel there are other things that make Spiedie sauce a little unique. One thing is that it has mint almost always. Like that seems to be a standard. Not that I really taste the mint, or that it doesn't taste minty. Let's put it that way. It's not like a minty, fresh taste, but that always seems to be a component of the sauces. And it's very garlicky, like it's high on the garlic quotient. But at this point, I would imagine there are so many variations in sauces. Everybody's put their own spin on it. There's no right or wrong anymore. Just like with, I guess, like with buffalo wings, really, for many years, there was really only one buffalo sauce, which is like Frank's Louisiana Red Hot sauce and butter. But people make all sorts of variations on that now. So
those are kind of the two biggest open questions that we found in our research. I've got one more question for you. It might be the toughest one yet. Can you describe Spiedies in one word?
Delicious.
There we go. That's all the questions we have for you today, Paul. Is there anything you want to plug, or can you let our audience know where they can find your current work?
I'm just going to add one thing, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
It's a thing in minor league baseball now for teams to do a 1 day or 1 weekend rebranding, where like the team that's normally known as the Binghamton Mets or whatever it is will this weekend we're gonna call ourselves this, and a lot of these 1 day or 1 weekend rebrandings are food based. They're based on local foods, and I believe the Mets or they're now the Rumble Ponies, right? The Binghamton Rumble Ponies, which is a reference to Binghamton's carousel or merry-go-round history. I believe that team has played as the Binghamton Spiedies.
Oh my.
So that's something you may want to look into that. I believe they have been. And so I think that's a measure of first how important, not that we didn't already know this, how important Spiedies are to Binghamton culture, but also that they've reached the point where a minor league baseball team can become the Binghamton Spiedies. I think they may have played like up in Syracuse. The minor league team there became the Syracuse Salt Potatoes.
Okay, that's we're looking at doing a salt potato episode soon.
And a Rochester team became they had to play as the Rochester Plates. They couldn't call themselves the Garbage Plates because it's trademarked.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
That's fun. That's fun.
Yeah. So you might want to like find a Binghamton Spiedies minor league baseball jersey. There's got to be one around out there.
I'm headed straight to eBay after this conversation. I'm going to find the jersey and the hat.
And as for me, one reason I know about minor league baseball teams and stuff like that is that my main gig is writing about sports uniform and logo design. And people who are interested in that and any of the other things I obsessively geek out over can find me at uniwatch.com. That's UNI-watch, uni-watch.com.
Great. Well, thank you again so much for joining us, Paul. We really enjoyed getting to talk Spiedies with you.
As I think you can tell, I really enjoyed it too.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
So that was Paul Lukas, our resident Spiedie expert, and thank him so much for coming, stop by to talk to us. It was great. As somebody who grew up on these, it was very cool to kind of get a deeper insight into that world and his perspective on it as well. So again, thank you so much, Paul, for rocking with us and taking the time to chat.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. It was a lot of fun getting to talk with him, and we're really excited to get to share that conversation with you guys. What I'm also excited to share with you, particularly you, Jim,
yes, is
a new segment that I'm calling Whose Sandwich Is It Anyway? And we're going to do, it's been a few episodes since we've had a game, but we're gonna bring it back.
Let's go.
And basically how it's going to work, there's going to be 4 rounds. First, I will describe the ingredients involved in a regional sandwich.
Okay.
And then I will ask you to guess what state you think that sandwich is from. If you get it based just off the ingredient description, 2 points.
Okay.
If you don't get it, I will then name the sandwich. And if you can guess it based off just the name and the ingredients, 1 point.
Okay.
4 rounds, 8 total points. If you score at least 5 points, the next time you and I are in Binghamton, the Spiedies are on me.
Oh, man. Let's go, man. Let's fucking go. I'm ready.
All right. First sandwich. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. This, and these descriptions come from Wikipedia, so it's pretty, it's a democratic descriptions of the sandwiches. First sandwich. Rare, thinly sliced roast beef on a Kummelweck bun, dusted with salt and caraway seeds. The top bun is dipped in beef au jus and slathered with horseradish. Jim, what state do you think this sandwich is from?
Oh my God. I gotta say, this sounds like a very northeastern sort of vibe. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna say Pennsylvania.
It is not Pennsylvania.
It's not.
I'm gonna name the sandwich now. Still can get 1 point. You're still in the mix.
Okay. All right.
The name of the sandwich is Beef on Weck.
Beef on Weck. Man, I don't know.
I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
You weren't. You were close. Your first guess was close.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna say New Jersey.
Oh no! Oh. So close. It's New York, specifically Buffalo.
Man,
it's a sandwich from Buffalo.
You know what? It's like the answer was right in front of me. I was literally on top of the answer.
I was going to say the answer was all around you. Not necessarily Buffalo, but Some of these have a city tied to them. If you guess the city, I will give you bonus points.
Right. I was going to say, like, I feel like there's probably going to be like a clue within this sandwich about maybe the city.
I mean, this one, some of them do have clues. This one did I named the actual bun Kummelweck. Probably not how you pronounce it, but
here we are.
So there's some. And I'll throw a hint out there too.
All right.
Are you ready for sandwich 2?
Let's go.
Sandwich 2 is an open-faced sandwich with turkey breast, ham, and bacon covered in creamy Mornay sauce and either baked or broiled until the bread is crisp and the sauce begins to brown. Cheddar cheese or American cheese may be added for the sauce. Alternatives for garnishes include tomatoes, mushroom slices, and very rarely, canned peaches.
Canned peaches?
Mm-hmm.
What type of monster? All right. There's so many things that I'm just like, what in God's name? What's going on? The peaches is really what's fucking with me right now.
Sure.
I don't know. I'm going to try and use context clues. I'll be honest, upstaters, I'm not too confident with my answer here. I'm going to say Georgia.
Not Georgia. We're not in Georgia.
I didn't think we were.
It's a heavier sandwich.
Yeah.
It involves peaches, so you're trending in the right direction, right? The sandwich is not from Maine, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
So there you go. I gave you a freebie. You're down to 49, or I guess 48, because it's not Georgia.
Right.
All right. The name of the sandwich, I don't know if this is going to help or not, is the Hot Brown.
The Hot Brown? I don't know. Ohio?
Oh, a little bit closer, I think. It is a sandwich from Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh, yeah. I'm in that kind of, I don't know what you want to call that, like south northeast of the country.
Does Ohio touch Kentucky?
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know. I know it touches some. I lived in Cleveland for a while.
It touches some state, yeah.
And it touched a state where I was like, what? Word?
Yeah.
Because there's like South Ohio.
I'm trying to remember if it's Tennessee or Kentucky.
Maybe it's Kentucky. I don't know, man. But
maybe.
Sorry.
Yeah, the Hot Brown.
It
sounds like a hot mess, as far as I'm concerned. Peaches? No.
Not for me. I don't know. Again, I don't know what type of sociopath is out there having their taste buds danced on with that shit, but not for me. All right, we got 2 more sandwiches, guys. Let's see if I can do it.
Round 3. So I think to win a Spiedie on me, you have to get both of these in the first round.
Right.
And get a bonus point, which is only possible on option 4. Okay, are you ready?
Let's go.
Round 3. All right. This is a yeast dough bread pocket with a filling consisting of beef, cabbage, or sauerkraut, onions, and seasoning. They can be baked into various shapes, such as a half moon, a rectangle, or a triangle, or kind of a rounded rectangle, I guess, is what it's describing. Do you have any idea what state this might be from? And I'll give you another hint. It's derived from pierogies.
Okay. I was going to say I felt some pierogi energy coming off that, which, again, Illinois?
No, but Midwest is the correct region you should be in.
Right.
All right. The name of the sandwich, it's called a runza.
Arunza, and it's in the Midwest.
And yet another hint. Runza is the name of the bread pocket sandwich that we're discussing. It's also the name of the chain that sells them.
Oh, okay. Well, that narrowed it down, Rob. Duh. Obviously, Wisconsin. Duh.
Oh, not quite. A little bit further south, and you would hit Nebraska, which is the famous originator of the Runza sandwich. They're good. I've had one in Colorado at a Runza, and it's pretty good. Not bad.
Okay.
Not bad.
Well,
all right.
If I'm out that way.
Yeah. next time you're in Nebraska.
Should that spirit ever move me. All right. I'm now playing for pride. I'm playing for pride at this point.
Exactly. You know what? If you get this one, I will still buy you a Spiedie.
Oh,
but you have to
man.
get on the first one.
Okay. All right.
You have to get on the first one. I'm not giving any hints. The first round.
No hints. No hints. All right. Brooklyn. I'm just kidding. Brooklyn, New York.
Jim, get serious.
You're right. My bad. I'm fucking around here.
All right. This is a cheeseburger. However, the cheese is inside two patties that are kind of welded around. So there's a molten cheese core, sometimes with onions inside as well. Where is this sandwich from?
I'm going to go back to Wisconsin with that.
Oh, that hurts me. Which is a hint. It's a big hint.
Minnesota.
There you go.
Fuck.
You got it. It's the Juicy Lucy.
Juicy
Son of Lucy
a bitch.
from Minneapolis.
From Minneapolis. Fuck. All right. This is the worst.
All right.
This is the worst day of my life. And yeah, it's God damn it. I apologize.
You were close.
Should have knew that.
You were close. It's all right. Like you have had many a Spiedie, I've had many a Juicy Lucy.
So the Juicy Lucy is to you as the Spiedie is to me.
Correct. And if anyone's wondering, Matt's has the better Juicy Lucy. There's two places, 5-8 Club, and Matt's is the one.
I'm picturing someone right now in Minnesota like, he better say fucking Matt's, man. I swear to God. This motherfucker.
It's Matt himself.
Yeah, exactly. Our number one fan. Listen, guys, this is a rebuilding season for me. I'm going to review the tapes and, losses are lessons. And I just hope I learn from this.
Here's where my planning was a little faulty. I thought that putting the sandwich name second as a clue would be like a bigger hint than the ingredients. I don't think that was the case.
Also, I had 51 options or however many states. How many states are there? 5, 10?
Somewhere between those.
Yeah, I definitely had a lot of the options were very vast. But you know what? I gave it 100%, and nobody can take that away from me. I'll tell you that.
Absolutely not.
No one's taking it away from me.
Absolutely not.
No way, Jose.
Well, what are people going to be taking away from us next week, Jim?
Oh man, listen, next week I am very excited to talk about, to give you the teaser, right? The preview of what we're going to be getting into next week. Be honest, man, this guy was a real super freak. He is a real super freak.
Super freaky?
He was a man who lived life out loud. Definitely enjoyed some Mary Jane, at some points, in his life. And, I gotta be honest.
Did he live in a brick house by any chance?
He didn't actually. I don't know if he was involved in that. He
oh no.
He didn't live in a brick house. I feel like you may have had this man confused with another similar.
Oh my God.
Similar vibe, but
hey, good thing I'm editing this episode.
I'm trying to see if there's any more fun puns, because you guys are out here listening. Let's see. Yeah. Well, we'll just have to give it to you, baby. That's it. That is the hint for who we're going to be talking about next week. Very excited to do that. Yeah, you guys are going to love it. He was a legend, and was a real, like I said, man, he's a real super freak.
I'm looking forward to it. And while everyone's waiting for that episode to come out, do you have anything that our listeners can check out? Anything you want to plug?
Oh man, what can they listen to or perhaps even buy before then? There is something. It is my album, Upstate Understandings. It is available on Bandcamp. So if you go to jimsearch.bandcamp.com, You can buy a copy of that. We got vinyl, CD, cassette. It's a fucking ride. You're going to love it. Production done by this co-host to what would be my left, Rob Adler. He held that down. It's a very dope album, so please go buy that. And again, if you buy one, you can buy another one. JimSearchComedy.com. You can find me there. All my show dates and everything like that. If you're in the New York City area, come out to a show. If you go to my website, you find a show and you go to it and you say that you found it through this podcast, I'll buy you a drink at the show. How about that?
Whoa. Can I use that?
Much like the conflict of interest Mr. Salmia might have experienced, I feel like this might be one of those. So unfortunately, Rob, you are recused from this game. We can't have that.
We'll tell you what, everyone can head over to brooklynfrequency.bandcamp.com, buy my album so I can buy myself a drink at Jim's show.
That's right, baby. And go do it. And again, if you buy a copy of his album, you can always buy another one too. I'm at Jim Search on all social media. Go follow me there if you want to see posts about Western beef and polo. That's the spot for you. And I also put up jokes and shit like that too. So go do that. That's about all I got in terms of promotions for y'all.
Sweet. And if you want to find me, you can find me at Rob Adler Guitar on Instagram. You can also find our show at Understanding Upstate on Instagram. And while you're at it, rate, review, and subscribe to our show. Also share this episode with a friend who needs Spiedies in their life if you want to help spread the Spiedie gospel. Jim, how are we going to sign off today's show?
Oh, man. You know what it is? Keep things on the up and up.
I like it. With that, I will see you next week.
Yes. Peace. Understanding Upstate is a podcast hosted by Jim Search and Rob Adler, edited by Rob Adler, and music from Regal Monk.